Welcome to another episode of Two Black Critics with Marvin Mason and Mark Sneed. I'm Mark Sneed, and that's
Marvin Mason.
and we are here to discuss some, I guess, black movies and black comics and black stuff because we're two black critics. But today we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about something that came up, and I think Merv, you were saying that it's called was it the
It's
Dark
called
Universe?
the other history. It's called the other history of the DC universe. It's actually on the imprint DC Black Label of all things. All right, and I mean, when I first found out about it, I knew I had to talk to you about
Yeah.
this.
Well, before you continue,
And
wait. Before you
sure,
continue, let me just explain what Black Label is. Black Label is the more adult version of DC, because DC is still seen as a comic book, just like Marvel comics are still they have those I forget what it is, the standards set up that so that certain things can be discussed. And the Black Label is where they had, I don't know if you remember the newest Batman they had, where
hmm
his penis came out, and they put it in the comic, and people lost their minds, right? And the so it's a little bit more adult, if anything else. So the alternate history of the DC comics would make sense on this Black Label.
hmm well, in this case, it's a throwback rewriting the history of the DC universe. Written years ago in 1986.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that was what, a two-part piece focusing on certain characters from the DC world.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, John Ridley, basically an award-winning screenwriter, um, took an opportunity because he's also working on a Batman piece, which I didn't know about. He's got
Okay.
a limited piece coming out on Batman later on this year.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, what he did was he took certain storylines and specific characters. So
Mm-hmm.
he's got Jefferson Pierce, who is Black Lightning, and his daughter Anissa,
Mm-hmm.
who's what, Thunder, I believe.
Yeah, Thunder. Mm-hmm.
He's also got a focus on like Bumblebee and Catania,
Mm-hmm.
and even the Question.
Okay.
Right, so he's got to focus on these characters in a series of books where he encapsulates not so much an alternate universe where they actually exist, but he's got storylines that are particularly focused on on their existence
In the
in the
universe,
universe.
right?
Exactly, considering he felt that their existence was non-existent in the original history of the DC universe.
Right. I get
But like
that.
how you left the black characters out.
Mm-hmm.
So he basically has written this piece. It was released actually right around Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So just recently, I mean, it's not like it's months old. It's
Right.
it's actually less than 2 weeks old.
Yeah.
Or no, I take that back. 2 weeks, no, less than 2 weeks old.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, the project was just released, but it's kind of groundbreaking. I mean, I can only imagine or hope that DC takes a look at it themselves, and especially with the HBO Max and all these other ventures they have out there, where they can actually find other ways to bring out the material. I mean, the book, yes, the graphic novel itself, great, but at the end of the day, you've got so many other ways to extrapolate product
Yeah.
into the marketplace.
Well, don't forget
Okay,
it's
and I'm hoping to
simultaneously.
utilize it.
We've talked about this, but you know that Black Lightning they've canceled it, and so that's over. And so the spinoff is, I guess, it's
Yeah.
still going ahead, but it's still questionable how long it will go. So and Black Lightning did really
Well, I
well as
think,
far as I know.
yeah, it's interesting because, we were taking a look at that. There is sort of an explanation, and, I got to admit, I don't vibe with the explanation, but it does go to why how
CW,
CW's catering to its audience,
right?
which
To this
is the
younger
Black
audience.
Lightning character himself. Yeah, a younger audience, which is kind of why Supernatural itself doesn't even, really work for him in its 14th season, which
Right.
really to show you figure it's going on for eons.
Hmm.
But they're like, yeah, the guys are getting along in the tooth.
Yeah.
It's like, really? Wow. So, I mean, I guess you pick them up now when they're 13, so you can get some longevity out of the story.
Hmm.
But no, that's why they're doing the spin-off with Painkiller.
Right.
To not so much just broaden the storyline. Because I mean, I don't know how you felt about it, but I did not feel personally that Painkiller was
A compelling story.
more interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I really did. Not that I'm gonna follow 13 episodes a year on,
Right.
but Anissa, no, was he dating Anissa, the younger sister?
The younger
right?
sister.
Right. I would have followed that story.
Hmm.
Okay, where she went. Now, I guess if you bring her in, but she's not your headliner.
Right.
Right, so
Well,
you kicked her to the curb again.
well, I think
I
that
don't know.
I think this whole. I mean, obviously, the back and forth and the backroom deals are interesting, right? And I think that it kind of plays into something that we discussed in an episode before about urban versus contemporary, and I think Painkiller is more of an urban character, and they're trying to skew. CW is, and it always has been. It's more of an urban kind of interest, and I think they want to attract young urban viewers, and so that kind of works with Painkiller. To be honest, I mean, I can almost see that. I don't know if I agree with it because I mean, story has to be compelling no matter what. And as you said, I don't know if I would pay attention because I forget the daughter, but her relationship with him was really interesting, and Thunder's relationship, it got kind of crunchy to me. But I think that if it's going to last, at least in this format, they're going to be skewing toward more younger characters,
Oh
and
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
and while we're talking about it, let me just say, we had this discussion offline, and I wanted to bring it up again. You had asked, I told you that there were a lot of DC characters that deserve to be have their own movie, or if not a series, or at least be seen in a movie. And so I wanted to spend just a short time on that, on some characters, at least DC characters who should have a movie. And I know that we were talking about this, and I kind of began with Batman, and I was like, oh no, no, I wasn't talking about Batman particularly. I was talking about his in I don't want this to be too big a spoiler for those who don't read the comics, but Batman in the comic book is seduced by Ra's al Ghul's daughter, and she's in the she's played in Dark Knight Returns, I believe, and by an actress, and so but she doesn't she couldn't carry water compared to the one in the comic, and she seduces Batman and gets pregnant, and she does it purposely so that she can have a child, and she takes this child, and Batman doesn't even know, and that's Damian Wayne. Man, they need to do a movie about Damian because he's the truth. I mean, he's amazing. He's When Batman finally meets his own son, he's 9 years old and he's tougher than Batman. And you can't even imagine what I just said. A 9 year old who's been raised by a group of assassins
Mm-hmm.
who is tougher than Batman. And it's just amazing. But there's a lot of Bat Family that if you got a chance to check out, I think Young Justice would be another good movie that they could do. That includes like Aqualad. These are just a lot of the kids from like the like Aquaman and like Wonder Woman's. They all have everyone. As they get older, they stop being in charge of things and they get married and have children and all this kind of stuff. And these kids come out, and that's why they call it Young Justice. Another character that I think that would be really amazing would be, or a movie or a TV show or something, would be the Martian Manhunter, because the story itself is just so interesting, because it's very, I think uh, Marvel tried to preempt it by having the scrolls in the last Avengers movie, and Martian Manhunter is he's obviously from Mars, but he has the ability to change his appearance, so he can look like anyone, and so he walks around like a normal person, but he's the last Martian who is exists, and so he's trying to procreate and figure out, but he can't procreate with anyone, no human, which is really weird in and of itself. And he's actually because when he first got here, I should tie this in. It was like brother from another planet, and he was, when he landed here, he was embraced by black people, because black people, we see weird stuff all the time, and they saw this weird gray skinned guy, and they said, you must be one of us. And his characters have always looked black, and so it's kind of a fascinating character. Green Arrow has a daughter named Artemis, who's really fascinating. There is, I don't know if you are familiar with Zatanna. The he he's the magician, and he has a daughter named Cheshire, who's really cool. And then there's also the Blue Beetle, and I think Blue Beetle actually is in a pre-production. I think they're trying to make a movie of Blue Beetle, because it's such a weirdly interesting movie, concept, I should say. It's like, I'm trying to think. It's like Green Lantern. There's a kid. He's walking around at night, and he sees like a ship crash, and he goes over to the ship, of course, curious, and inside there's a beetle, and he reaches out, and then like he stops himself, because he's like, everyone's seen the movies, they're like, no, 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 don't touch that, right? And the beetle attaches itself to him, and becomes, he's kind of is like it's almost like Venom. He's a symbiote. So
Okay.
it's a really clever idea.
Okay. Oh, I hadn't heard of that one.
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
I just think that, I think that the DC is relying on its major characters, but unfortunately, I think that I'm gonna be personally burnt out on all the Batman movies. I would love to see other movies, because there are other characters, and that's the only reason I even bring them up, because I know there's other possibles that could be really interesting. And this kind of ties in, because today they announced that Warner is going to release its, for 2021, all of its movies on HBO Max, as well as in the theaters, the same day,
Hmm.
which is nuts. Nuts, man. That's nuts. So all of a sudden, I might think about getting me an HBO Max. Uh, I guess I already got it. I got to start watching it. I guess I don't really watch it, so nothing on the watch.
Okay.
So
Well, the thing about it is they're going to kill the free subscription.
yeah,
All right, they got to pay for the films,
yeah.
right? It's an interesting aspect. I mean, since you brought it up now, um, because the question becomes, who else follows suit here?
Hmm.
You can sort of say Disney already did it, but I'll tell you one of the more interesting aspects as far as Disney's concerned, which is you take Black Widow off the slate, they don't have any Marvel pieces, they don't have any Star Wars pieces.
Hmm.
So all they have is a Pixar, another Pixar project, maybe, some Disney animated pieces. They don't have a lot of films that to release in 2021
Right.
where they can figure out what the relationship with the theaters are anyway, the exhibitors anyway.
Hmm.
Let's face it. Anytime they release something, they were crushing and staying in the theaters for 6 to 8 weeks anyway.
Right.
So they didn't need the traditional 12 titles a year. And don't forget, for a certain period, most of the studios had cranked out to 20 films a year.
Mm-hmm.
They knew something was going to be amiss, and they still could make them cash in, the ancillary market. But here, this is completely different. And let's be fair about it. The exhibitors themselves are stating this, and actually Wall Street is stating this, which is this is going to be a watershed year for Warner Brothers from the standpoint of they're going to be writing off
Yeah.
a lot of debt.
Yes.
As far as that's concerned, there's no way to recoup this money,
Right.
right? But at the same time, and you know what? It's a weird roll of the dice. I think that I'm not saying that they were. I think that they did sit back and look at the deal that Universal put out there.
Mm-hmm.
Universal's somewhat smart. It's only a matter of time because, in all fairness, if I'm Universal, and I'm not, but if I'm Universal, I'm going to sit back now and watch Warner.
Mm-hmm.
Because if HBO Max does take fire, they have to release Fast and Furious there.
Yeah.
They have to do the same thing.
Well, I mean, I think that 2021 is going to be, like you said, it's going to be a crazy year because things are changing. But I'll tie it in because I know you always love to talk about the virus and all that kind of stuff. So I'll tie it in. I was listening to one of the leads or the heads of one of the vaccine makers, and he said if things roll out there's no hiccups, he could see April being almost a time of it being normal, of a normal kind of normalcy. But I talked to a friend of mine who is also connected with pharma, and he's like, man, the process, these steps to make it and get it out, because the problem, of course, is you've got the duplicate or the two-pronged vaccine, and then you have the one-pronged vaccine, and everyone's trying to figure all that out, and that's where it all kind of falls, not apart, but that's where we're trying to figure it out. Because even like today, when Warner made that announcement, there was immediately theater stocks or studio stocks dropped because they're like, what? Because this is money. These are money issues.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the funny thing is, I'm not going to stay on this long. I'm just going to throw this one out here. You may have heard also that the shot that they have that they're talking about, the inoculation that they have, is annual.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not a one-time deal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, really? So they're like, so you'll be coming back for this shot. I'm like, oh, man, you got to be kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Got to be kidding. As long as I'm an essential worker, I guess I'll be coming back.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, this matter is one of interest because I think like the MCU, as you said, the Marvel, they're still trying to consider what to do because obviously the thing that they spent the most money on that they are still holding on to is Black Widow, and Disney has kind of got itself painted into a corner that they don't know how to get out of. Because after a certain point, is it relevant anymore? Will Black Widow be relevant anymore? So
especially if she wasn't going to fit into the next phase anyway.
Right.
No.
Right.
This is a real closure to the last phase. I realize, yes, you can start building new product in the summer of 2021, which seems to be, I know, the target date for the initial shooting for Black Panther.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that, and who knows where that falls into the next phase, because you've got to prepare the rest of the pieces.
Right.
You've got to start developing them, if anything else, and also in your development, you've got to figure out budget-wise, okay, is it going to make sense?
Right.
What territories will actually be up and running again? If the United States is actually closed because everything went bankrupt, right? Are we going to sit around and wait for them to rebuild the theaters?
Right. Well, and then simultaneously, as you're talking about this, there are some things that are in production, right? Like I just heard about this, and I'm curious what you think. Tiffany Haddish and Aquafina are going to be doing Jump Street, and I think because they wanted to do the parody of the Jonah Hill and what's that guy's name? Magic Mike. Channing Tatum, yeah,
Tatum,
Channing
yeah,
Tatum,
yeah.
and so I'm curious. What do you think? Do you think that has a chance to succeed or get off the ground?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it's not going to cost anything. I mean, the original Jump Street didn't cost anything. First of
Okay.
all, you do know who the executive producer was, right?
Mm-mm.
Ice Cube.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's not like he spent $100 million on it. Okay.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
be fair about it.
Mm.
It's the most expensive part to the whole thing was Channing Tatum.
Yeah,
And
I
so
got
once
you.
he put himself as a profit participant, you took care of that.
Okay.
It's no, it's I'm not gonna say it's a slam dunk or a home run. It's just an alternate version. Aquafina in particular, introduces a whole new
Yeah,
marketplace for them.
definitely.
So that's the upside there, especially since she really does have tremendous dramatic chops and indie cred.
Yeah.
Okay, more so than Tiffany Haddish, although Tiffany Haddish has now dipped her toe in dramatic waters. Okay, starting with the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not all. I'm gonna put it like this: if the last film cost $40 million to make, this one's gonna cost 17. And that's not,
Really?
first of all, don't get me wrong. Once again, I said Aquafina is known in the art world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm not dropping $10 million on her.
Okay, I got you.
She's not getting that check. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
same with Tiffany Haddish. Tiffany Haddish on a good day, I'm gonna look at what Netflix is willing to pay her.
Mm-hmm.
If Netflix is not getting her check for $1 million yet, call this a major Christmas.
You're right. I got you.
Okay,
I got you.
and it's not disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she gets $3 million in the back end. That's cool, but she's not taking all the profit.
Okay.
Okay, she's not going to get top dollar gross.
Right. I get that.
Okay?
I get that.
So neither one of them.
Yeah.
So it's not a loss there. It's still a reference to a piece of material that still works.
Mm-hmm.
It's still viable. No, they're fine. They're fine on that project. But once again, that could be an HBO Max project, and they wouldn't even lose a dime.
Sure. Well, let me ask this question then. I was really surprised, and you'll like this. I saw that recently they were talking about the possibility of the next Spider-Man movie, and actually a few of the Marvel movies kind of falling into these basic tropes of the best friend being the enemy. And I was really curious what you think, because I think that like the Doctor Strange movie, you're going to see Chinaway. I'm not going to say his name right. He's from 12 Years a Slave. He played that character. He may return as the villain to Doctor Strange.
Yes.
Huh?
Yeah. He's one of the villains.
Right. And then you
He's
have
in the Doctor Strange anyway, yeah.
right, and then you have in the Spider-Man movie, Ned. Ned is the best friend of Peter Parker in the movie. He's not truly his best friend, but in the movie he is. But in the comic I'm talking about. But the problem, of course, is Ned. I don't know if you saw his dramatic weight change, and it is. There's been a lot of speculation because his Peter's closest friend always becomes the Green Goblin. And I'm wondering if Ned's going to be the Green Goblin or some iteration of him. Because, and again, it's kind of funny because to me, this is kind of like lazy writing. It's just like, okay, what could we do now? Let's just make all their best friends their enemies. That'll make it interesting. So I'm just curious.
But the thing is, especially the Sony component, when Kevin Feige finally got involved with the Sony deal, which he really was never involved in, until they brought Spider-Man into the Civil War story.
Right.
Okay, he had never been involved in what Sony did. Now suddenly, with Venom and everything else, and what's that, Morbius? No, I'm saying Doctor, but Morbius.
Yeah, Morbius.
So now he's involved. But at the end of the day, and we did talk about this, the biggest difference, and not so much a misunderstanding, but the biggest difference is, all right, Marvel, when Disney, even when Disney wanted taking a chance on them and buying them out, they let them keep their plan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and from this standpoint, it was their top tier, you know, really their top tier go tos.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas DC was built differently. DC had to get, sort of like Oliver asking for porridge, another bowl. Okay, so Marvel, Marvel found his financing. We talked about this earlier. Marvel found his financing from an outside source,
Right.
and then built up and ramped up. And in all fairness, okay, Disney took a chance on it, but Marvel always knew it could find a partner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the question was, did I want a partner or did I want an owner?
Right.
They wanted to take an owner.
Yeah.
Okay, which was interesting because there was no risk for them to take an owner. But you take a partner, you were always going to hear that partner whine. Like I'm sure Paramount was actually whining.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that second Thor really didn't pop off the way we thought it was. Okay, why are these things taking so long to develop? When are
Right.
we going to get this? And they probably didn't want to hear that noise anymore. All right, and they found a true partner who had other ancillary ways to help them develop what they needed to develop and
Mm-hmm.
take the time that they needed. Okay, and they always told them, "Hey, we'll be here." All right, you look at DC, and DC once again, I'm always going to say this: every move they make is always going to be beholden to what AT&T and their shareholders are going to have to
Right.
say.
Right.
Okay, and that's how you have to watch this movement, which is why even. And it's funny because we always talk about the two titans, but we don't talk about the other guys who are really out there in the marketplace, all right? You know, because they're not the only comic book companies out there,
Yeah. Unquestionably, they are.
okay? And they're not the only ones who actually put their toe in the theatrical waters. Um, and the question is, when do they step up?
Yeah.
When does Netflix decide I'm gonna partner up with them
Well,
or
I think that
Amazon?
we'll back up a little bit because I think the reason why we talk about Marvel and DC is because they are so large. And what happens is because they're so large, they have all these other stories, right? So, like for example, Bloodshot came from DC. For example, I'm trying to think. There are a lot of like Watchmen came from DC. Marvel has a bunch of stuff as well, but what happens is a lot of the stuff is hidden, right? For example, like Neil Gaiman's Sandman, which I believe Netflix or not Netflix, I'm not sure. Either Netflix or HBO is interested in making into a series. It's going to be done, but that's not truly DC. It was one of many things that were done to make it more like again back to the black labels and things like that. Like Marvel has the same kind of elements involved as well, and they always are trying to find something that is a little bit edgy that could be interesting. For example, Guardians of the Galaxy is a great example for Marvel of a win when because it's not one of their bigger imprints, and even which is I'm gonna add this really quickly. Even one that was horrible to the fans and is Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel was shelled because none of the fans liked it. Excuse me, and but it was brought back because of Marvel's team, and it has had a checkered past. A lot of people don't like Captain Marvel because it's so it's an annoying story because they created a god, and then creating a god is sort of like Superman. Superman is great in theory, but when you have Superman fighting Lex
Lex
Luthor
Luthor. Yeah, yeah.
or Brainiac, you're like, really? These characters, other people could have been dealing with this. It's sort of like in Marvel, Scarlet Witch. You can't imagine Scarlet Witch really fighting. She's truly a god. I mean, she's a witch, and she has all these powers. And if she used them, she like for example, even in the even in the movie Infinity Wars, she's the one who nearly killed Thanos, and by herself. She didn't need anybody. And
True.
you're like I think the Dania Guerrero said the same thing. Everybody looked at. Where was she all this movie? Because she could have killed all those creatures that were trying to break in. She could have done that all single handedly. And when you have a character like that, you start to question, why are they fighting these people? You know what I mean? Because there's no point. And the same idea applies here. So you have to start thinking to yourself, do you, I mean, some of the stuff has to, you have to find characters, like you go back to the urban stuff, right? Daredevil. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm talking about the Netflix Daredevil, not the Ben
Hmm.
Affleck Daredevil. I mean, that was
No, no,
really
hey.
good. And I wish that that's stuff that's great. I think that they're even considering uh, redoing or bringing back the Punisher. So I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of things that are there, but we always concentrate on the big ones because they're the ones who have the money to produce other things. And I think the smaller labels, we should spend some time on that. So maybe next episode, we'll spend a little bit of time, and I'll name at least some comics that people should read that are not from Marvel or DC, because I think there are some really great ones. You just have to, you have to. Like they're just some that we should give some love to. That's it. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. I mean, because I'll be fair about this because, from my standpoint, and it's what I'm talking about as far as how right now it's not us. I don't mean the two of us. I mean everybody's really focused on just these two primaries,
Sure.
as if they're two. And really, yes, they are the true titans to a certain extent. But at the same time, I know there's another meal out there. I'm gonna put it like this: remember when real boxing, was like the number one thing everybody watched, all right, on Saturdays, and then someone, where the heck did UFC come from?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
What was that derived from? That suddenly it is the prime money maker right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and no disrespect, but boxing has gone to such a level that you need the carnival of Mike Tyson fighting Roy Jones.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get a card like that in UFC yet. Not yet. Okay? So what I'm saying is, right now, what we're doing is we're looking at Marvel and DC, and they are a stone's throw away from being that road show. Mike Tyson and Roy Jones, right? But we're ignoring the UFC. We're ignoring, hey, forgive me because I don't really care about it, but the WWE. We're forgetting about all these other components that are these other venues that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
We're forgetting about Hellboy, which is interesting because Hellboy doesn't belong to either one of these.
Right.
It's
I
just that
know.
nobody keeps getting it right.
Mm-hmm.
So Hellboy's gone from Sony to Universal, or is it the other way around? One of the two to Lionsgate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I mean, so there's another comic book out there. There's
Mm-hmm.
another comic book company out there because it should only belong to one of two domains.
Right.
Either
Well, like I said,
Warner
I
or
can definitely, illuminate those other entities that we should probably be paying attention to, because there are definitely some good comics out there and some good comic
yeah, that's what I'm
companies out
saying.
there as well. Because I mean,
And
Image used to be they created Deadpool, and they're not,
right.
so yeah, there's a number, so we can talk about that kind of stuff. So but we're gonna end this episode right here, thankfully. And wanted to thank you, Merv, of course, for all your insights. And wanted to
Well, thank
ask,
you very much.
is there anything you wanted to add other than being Merv?
No, I'm good this time. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate the time we took on this one. Thank you.
All right. Thank
I
you.
appreciate you throwing. No, thank you for throwing a lot of light on this one.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
all right. Always welcoming the questions and comments from all our listeners. Thank you so much. And that's a wrap.